The staff member handed it to Roman. He looked down. The photo showed a little girl around 7 years old standing beside a woman with blonde hair and soft eyes. Elena took a sharp breath the moment she saw it in Roman's hands. "That's mine." Roman looked at the woman in the photo. For a second, something moved in his expression, only slightly. Then he handed it back. "Your mother?" Elena nodded. "She died when I was young." Roman looked away first. That strange feeling returned again, the one he could not explain. "Please," Elena said quietly. Roman looked back at her. For the first time all night, her voice sounded weak, not because she was scared, because she was tired of pretending she was not. "I just need somewhere safe for one night." The word should not have mattered. Roman had heard worse, seen worse, done worse. But there was something dangerous about the way Elena looked at him in that moment, like she had already suffered enough to stop caring whether he helped her or not. Marco stepped closer. "Roman," his tone carried warning. "She's a problem." Roman looked toward him. "Everything is a problem." Marco lowered his voice. "If your enemies find out there's a girl inside the house, they'll ask questions." Roman's face stayed cold. "Then they can ask." The guard near the driveway frowned. "You really want to bring a stranger into the mansion?" Roman looked back toward Elena. She had started shivering now. Rain soaked through the thin fabric of her hoodie. The bruise near her neck looked worse under the lights. Someone had hurt her recently. Badly. Roman knew bruises. He knew violence. And he knew exactly what kind of men left marks like that. That thought made something dark move inside him. "Who hurt you?" he asked. Elena looked away. "No one." Roman stepped closer. The guards immediately became silent. "Don't lie to me." For a second, Elena said nothing. Then she pulled the sleeve of her hoodie slightly lower over her wrist. Too late. Roman had already seen the fingerprint-shaped bruises there. Someone had grabbed her hard enough to leave marks. Someone bigger, stronger. The kind of man Roman hated most. Elena looked back at him. "It doesn't matter." Roman's jaw tightened slightly, because he knew what that answer really meant. It matters too much. He looked toward Marco again. "Find out if anyone's been looking for her." Marco sighed quietly. "Roman, that wasn't a request." Marco nodded once. Then Roman looked back toward Elena. "You can stay one night." She blinked. "What?" "One night," Roman repeated. "You eat, you sleep, you leave in the morning." Elena stared at him, like she did not believe him. Roman almost regretted saying it immediately, because he did not help people. He did not save people. And he definitely did not bring strangers into his home. But something about Elena Carter made him break rules he had spent years building. The guard opened the front doors of the mansion. Warm light spilled across the driveway. Elena slowly stepped out of the SUV. She nearly lost her balance when her feet touched the ground. Roman caught her arm before she fell. For 1 second, both of them froze. Her skin felt cold beneath his hand. Elena looked up at him. Roman let go immediately. "Walk," he said coldly. She nodded once. The inside of the mansion looked exactly the way Elena imagined rich people lived. Tall ceilings, marble floors, huge staircases, expensive paintings, crystal chandeliers hanging above polished hallways. Everything looked beautiful and cold, very cold. The house felt less like a home and more like a museum where nobody was allowed to touch anything. Elena followed Roman through the front hallway, while staff members stared at her quietly. She knew how she looked. Dirty clothes, wet hair, bruises. She looked like someone who did not belong in a place like this. Maybe she did not. Roman stopped near the staircase and looked toward one of the women working in the house. Get her food, clean clothes. Put her in one of the guest rooms. The woman nodded immediately. Elena looked toward Roman. "Why are you helping me?" Roman's face gave nothing away. "Don't make me regret it." Then he turned to leave. Elena watched him walk toward the far hallway. Tall, broad shoulders, black shirt, the kind of man who looked dangerous even in silence. She should have been terrified of him. Maybe part of her was. But another part of her already knew something else. Men like Roman DeLuca did not help strangers for no reason. As Elena followed the housekeeper toward the staircase, her eyes moved across the wall beside the hallway. Then she stopped. A framed photograph hung near the stairs. It showed a younger version of Roman standing beside a blonde woman with soft eyes and a gentle smile. Elena felt the air leave her lungs, because the woman in the picture looked exactly like her mother. And upstairs, Roman stopped walking too, because he had just realized Elena saw it. When Roman DeLuca opened the back door of his black SUV after a brutal night, he expected blood, money, and weapons, not a terrified girl asleep across his backseat. Chicago looked different after midnight. The expensive restaurants closed their doors. The businessmen disappeared into high-rise apartments. The tourists vanished from downtown streets. What remained belonged to men like Roman DeLuca. Rain covered the city that night. Thin drops slid down black windows, soaked empty sidewalks, and reflected the red lights of expensive cars moving through the dark streets. Roman sat in the back seat of his SUV with one hand resting against his jaw. His black suit jacket lay beside him. The collar of his dark shirt was open. A small cut near his eyebrow still carried fresh blood from earlier that evening. The meeting had gone badly. One of the men from Detroit had tried to lie to him. Another had reached for a gun too slowly. By the time Roman left the warehouse near the river, 2 men were dead, 1 was missing, and everyone else had learned the same lesson people always learn around Roman DeLuca. Never mistake silence for weakness. His driver, Marco, kept his eyes on the road. "We still have the money," Marco said. Roman looked out the window. That was never a problem. Marco nodded once. He had worked for Roman for nearly 10 years. He understood when to speak and when to stay quiet. The black SUV moved through downtown Chicago before turning toward the richer neighborhoods near the lake. Roman owned several buildings in the city, but his main mansion sat behind iron gates on a private road far away from everyone else. That was how he liked it. Far away from noise, far away from betrayal, far away from anything that felt too human. Because Roman DeLuca trusted very little. Not family, not friends, not women, especially not women. Years ago, he had trusted someone. Years ago, he had believed loyalty could exist. That mistake had cost him more than money. Since then, Roman had built his life around one rule: never care too much about anything you can lose. The SUV finally rolled to the mansion gates just after 2 in the morning. Rain still fell lightly over the stone driveway. Marco parked near the front entrance, while 2 armed guards stepped forward to open the doors. Roman stepped out first. He looked toward the front of the mansion, already thinking about the shower, the whiskey, and the silence waiting for him upstairs. Then Marco walked around the back of the SUV. A second later, he stopped. Roman noticed immediately. Marco almost never reacted to anything. "What is it?" Roman asked. Marco did not answer right away. Instead, he slowly opened the back door. Roman stepped closer, and that was when he saw her. A young woman lay curled across the back seat. She looked small beneath the expensive leather interior. Her dark blonde hair fell messily across her face. Her clothes were soaked from rain and dirt. A faded gray hoodie hung loosely over her shoulders. One of her shoes was missing. She was asleep, or unconscious. For 1 second, nobody moved. Roman stared at her coldly. "Who is she?" Marco frowned. "She wasn't here earlier." One of the guards stepped closer and looked inside. "She must have gotten in while we were at the warehouse." Roman's expression darkened immediately. That should not have been possible. No one got near Roman's vehicles. No one touched his cars, his property, or his men without permission. And yet somehow, a girl had ended up asleep in the back of his SUV. The guard reached toward her arm. "Want me to get rid of her?" The moment his hand touched her shoulder, the girl woke up. Her eyes opened instantly, wide, frightened, confused. She looked around quickly, breathing hard as she realized she was no longer alone. Then her eyes landed on Roman. For a second, she froze. Roman expected screaming, panic, begging. Instead, she only looked exhausted. The girl slowly sat up. Her face was pale beneath the rainwater and dirt. There was a bruise near the side of her neck. Another dark mark near her wrist. Roman noticed both immediately. "Who are you?" he asked. Her voice sounded rough when she answered. Elena. Full name, Elena Carter. Roman looked at her carefully. She looked young, maybe 23, 24, tired eyes, hollow cheeks, the kind of face that had been beautiful once but had spent too long surviving. What are you doing in my car? Elena swallowed hard. I thought it was empty. Marco looked annoyed. That's not an answer. Elena looked down briefly, then back at Roman. I was hiding. Roman's expression did not change. From who? For the first time, fear crossed her face. She looked toward the street behind the gates. Some men. Roman stayed quiet. Most people in his world lied quickly. They made excuses. They invented stories. But Elena looked too tired to lie. You picked the wrong car, Marco said. Elena looked toward him. I know. Rainwater still dripped from the ends of her hair. Roman studied her for another moment. He noticed the bruises again, the dirt beneath her nails, the way her hands shook slightly from cold. You homeless? He asked. Elena looked embarrassed. For a few weeks. What happened? She laughed once. It was not a happy sound. Life. Roman should have walked away then. He should have told Marco to take her somewhere else, drop her at a shelter, give her money, forget she existed. That would have been easier, safer, smarter. Instead, he stayed there looking at her while rain fell around them, because something about her felt strange. Not familiar, not exactly, but enough to make him pause. Marco looked toward Roman. She could be a setup. Roman said nothing. She could be working for someone. Still nothing. She could be wearing a wire. Roman's eyes stayed on Elena. She looked too weak to be dangerous. Too hungry, too tired, too broken, and yet she was staring back at him without fear. That was what interested him most. Most people looked at Roman and saw a monster immediately. Elena looked at him like she did not have enough energy left to be afraid. Search her, Roman said finally. One of the female staff members from the house stepped outside a few minutes later. She checked Elena quickly. No weapon, no wire, no phone. Nothing except a small folded photograph hidden inside her hoodie pocket. Elena thought Roman's mansion would be safer than the streets, until she realized the house was hiding secrets bigger than the city itself. Elena barely slept that night. The guest room was bigger than her old apartment. The bed felt too soft. The blankets smelled clean. A tray of untouched food sat near the window. She should have felt grateful. Instead, she felt nervous, because houses like this did not exist without a reason. Every wall inside Roman DeLuca's mansion looked expensive. Every piece of furniture looked imported. Every hallway looked too polished to belong to real people. It felt like a beautiful cage. By morning, sunlight filled the room through tall windows that overlooked endless gardens and fountains. Elena stood near the glass, wearing borrowed clothes from the house staff. Soft black leggings, a cream sweater, clean socks. It felt strange not wearing the same dirty hoodie she had slept in for weeks. A quiet knock came from the door. One of the older women from the staff entered carrying breakfast. Mr. DeLuca wants you downstairs in 30 minutes. Elena frowned slightly. He tells everyone what to do? The woman gave a small smile. In this house, yes. Then she left. Elena looked around the room one more time before stepping into the hallway. The mansion looked even bigger in daylight. Marble floors stretched across endless hallways. Paintings hung on the walls. Expensive chandeliers reflected sunlight across polished surfaces. But what Elena noticed most were the guards. 2 near the staircase, 1 outside the dining room, another near the front doors. Even cameras watched every hallway. It looked less like a home and more like a fortress. As Elena walked downstairs, she quickly realized there were rules in this house. No one raised their voice. No one touched anything without permission. No one asked Roman DeLuca unnecessary questions. She learned that last one quickly. Roman sat alone at the far end of the dining room table with a cup of black coffee in one hand and a newspaper in the other. He wore a black dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked calm, too calm, like the kind of man who could order someone killed before breakfast and still eat afterward. Elena stopped near the table. Roman looked up once. Sit. She hated that he made simple words sound like commands. Still, she sat. A woman from the kitchen placed breakfast in front of her. Pancakes, eggs, fruit, orange juice. Elena stared at the food for a second. Then she looked at Roman. You always feed strangers like this? Roman folded the newspaper slowly. You looked hungry. I was. Then eat. Elena picked up the fork. For the first few minutes, neither of them spoke. Roman read reports on his phone. Elena tried not to eat too quickly, even though she felt starving. Eventually, she looked up. Who was the woman in the photo? Roman did not react immediately. That almost made it worse. What photo? The one near the stairs. Roman placed his coffee cup down. You ask too many questions. Elena crossed her arms. And you avoid too many answers. For a second, Roman looked at her with something close to annoyance. Then he stood from the table. She doesn't matter. The answer made Elena angry immediately, because the woman in the photo did matter. Roman's face had changed when he looked at it, and Elena knew what she saw. She looked exactly like my mother. Roman stopped walking, only for a second. Then he continued toward the door. You're leaving tonight, he said coldly. And just like that, the conversation ended. Over the next few days, Elena remained inside the mansion longer than she expected. Roman never told her to leave. That was the strange part. He barely spoke to her, unless he had to. He'd disappear for hours into meetings, phone calls, and private rooms filled with men in expensive suits. But every night, dinner still appeared outside her room. New clothes appeared in the closet, and no one forced her out. That confused Elena more than anything. Roman acted like he did not want her there, but he kept finding reasons not to let her go. She noticed other things too. The house had strict rules. Never go near the West Wing. Never enter Roman's office. Never leave the property without telling security. Never ask questions about the men coming and going from the basement. The rules came from the staff. Roman never repeated them himself. He did not need to. Everything about him already felt like a warning. One afternoon, Elena walked through the back gardens behind the mansion. The air felt cold. The fountains were still running. Huge stone statues stood near the trees. For the first time in weeks, she almost felt peaceful. Then she noticed a black SUV parked near the side entrance. 3 men stood beside it smoking cigarettes. The moment they saw her, they stopped talking. One of them smiled in a way that made her uncomfortable. She's pretty, he said. Another man laughed quietly. Elena immediately turned to walk back inside. Before she reached the door, Roman appeared. He walked down the steps in a black coat with one hand in his pocket. The men near the SUV immediately straightened. Roman looked at them once. Leave. His voice stayed calm. But every man moved instantly. Within seconds, they were gone. Roman looked toward Elena. You shouldn't be out here alone. She frowned. You have guards everywhere. That doesn't mean everyone inside these gates is safe. The answer stayed with her long after he walked away. Because for the first time, Elena realized Roman was not only protecting her from people outside the mansion, he was protecting her from people inside it too. That night, Elena heard shouting coming from downstairs. She stepped quietly into the hallway and followed the noise toward Roman's office. The door was slightly open. Inside, Roman stood near his desk while Marco faced him. You can't keep hiding her here, Marco said. Roman stayed calm. She's not hidden. She will be when people start asking questions. Roman poured himself a drink, then let them ask. Marco looked frustrated. Victor Moretti already heard rumors. That name meant nothing to Elena. But Roman's face changed immediately, only slightly. From who? We don't know yet. Roman's jaw tightened. Find out. Marco lowered his voice. She's becoming a problem. Roman looked toward the window. No, he said quietly. She's becoming a target. Elena stepped away from the office before they could see her. Her heart pounded, because suddenly she understood something. Roman's world was bigger than she thought, darker too, and somehow she was already trapped inside it. The next morning, Elena found Roman sitting alone in the library. The room was dark except for sunlight near the windows. Books covered every wall. A glass of whiskey sat beside him, even though it was barely noon. Roman looked up when she entered. "What do you want?" Elena crossed her arms. "Who was Victor Moretti?" Roman's face stayed expressionless. "You've been listening at doors. You've been hiding things." Roman stood slowly. "He's not your problem." Elena looked at him. "You keep saying that. But somehow, everything in this house feels like my problem." Roman walked toward her. He stopped close enough for her to notice the scar near his jaw. "Then stop asking questions you don't want answers to." The words should have scared her. Instead, they made her angry. "Maybe I'm tired of people treating me like I'm stupid." Roman's eyes darkened slightly. "You have no idea what kind of world this is." Elena looked up at him. "Then explain it." For a second, Roman almost looked tired, really tired, like he wanted to answer but did not know how. Instead, he looked away. "You should have stayed in the car." That answer hurt more than she expected, because deep down, Elena already knew the truth. Roman wanted her gone. He just could not make himself throw her away. Over the next week, the tension between them only grew. They argued at breakfast. They argued in hallways. They argued in the library. Roman kept trying to push her away. Elena kept refusing to leave. And somewhere between the arguments, something strange started happening. She started noticing the small things. Roman always waited until she sat down before anyone served dinner. He made the guards walk behind her, not beside her. He moved her bedroom to a safer part of the house after hearing rumors about Victor Moretti. One night, Elena woke up from a nightmare and walked downstairs for water. She found Roman asleep in a chair near the front window, with a gun resting on the table beside him. He had been sitting there watching the front gates, watching them for her. That changed something. Not everything, but enough. A few days later, Elena entered the kitchen and found one of the younger staff members crying quietly near the sink. The girl looked no older than 19. Elena walked closer. "What happened?" The girl wiped her eyes quickly. "Nothing." Before Elena could ask more questions, a man from the security team entered the kitchen. He grabbed the young woman's arm too hard. "Roman wants the reports upstairs." The girl looked frightened instantly. Elena stepped forward. "You're hurting her." The man looked annoyed. "Mind your business." Elena grabbed his wrist. "Let her go." For a second, the entire kitchen became silent. Then another voice cut through the room. She said, "Let her go." Roman stood near the doorway. The security man released the girl immediately. Roman walked closer. His face looked calm. Too calm. "Get out," he told the man. The man left without arguing. Roman looked at the young woman. "Go upstairs." She nodded quickly and disappeared. Then Roman looked at Elena. "You shouldn't interfere." Elena crossed her arms. He was hurting her. Roman stayed silent for a second. Then he looked toward the door where the man had disappeared. "He won't do it again." The answer sounded cold, dangerously cold. And somehow, Elena knew he meant it. That night, Roman's softer side became impossible to ignore. Because beneath the cold voice, the expensive suits, and the dangerous men surrounding him, Roman DeLuca hated cruelty more than anyone she had ever met. Late one evening, Elena wandered into the east hallway while looking for the library. The hallway stayed darker than the others. Most of the doors were locked. At the very end stood Roman's office. The door was slightly open. She should have walked away. Instead, she stepped inside. The office smelled like whiskey, smoke, and old books. A desk sat near the window covered in files. Photographs, papers, names. Elena walked closer. At first, she only saw business reports, bank accounts, shipping routes. Then she saw something that made her stop breathing. A file with her name on it. Elena Carter. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside were copies of her birth certificate, old photographs of her as a child, medical reports, school records, and beneath all of it sat another photograph. Her mother, standing beside a much younger Roman DeLuca, smiling. Elena stared at the picture, because suddenly, the truth became impossible to ignore. Roman had known her mother for years. The dangerous man Elena feared had been hiding the one truth that could change her life forever. For several seconds, Elena could not move. She stood inside Roman's office with the photograph still in her hands. Her mother looked young in the picture, happy, standing beside Roman near what looked like a lake house. Roman looked younger too, less cold, less dangerous. For one strange second, they almost looked normal. Then Elena heard footsteps in the hallway. She quickly turned. Roman stood in the doorway. His expression changed the second he saw the photograph in her hand. The room became silent. "You went through my desk," he said quietly. Elena looked at him with anger already building in her chest. "You knew my mother." Roman did not answer immediately. That was answer enough. Elena stepped toward him. "You knew her and never told me?" Roman closed the office door behind him. "You shouldn't be in here." "You don't get to do that." Elena snapped. "You don't get to avoid every question just because you're Roman DeLuca." His jaw tightened slightly. "You don't understand what you found." "Then explain it." For a moment, Roman just looked at her. Then he walked slowly toward the desk and took the photograph from her hand. "She worked for my family," he said finally. Elena frowned. "What does that mean?" Roman looked down at the picture. "Your mother worked as a bookkeeper for my father years ago. She handled money, records, accounts." Elena stared at him. "My mother worked for Mafia?" Roman's face stayed cold. "She worked for men with power." "That means yes." He did not deny it. The truth hit Elena harder than she expected, because for most of her life, her mother had been the only good thing she remembered, the only safe thing. Now, even that memory felt damaged. "She never told me any of this." "She was trying to protect you." Elena laughed bitterly. "Really? Because right now it feels like everyone in my life enjoys hiding things from me." Roman placed the photograph back on the desk. "She left before you were old enough to remember any of it." The room suddenly felt smaller. Elena crossed her arms tightly. She didn't leave. She disappeared. Roman looked at her. Yes. The way he said it made her stomach tighten. Because he knew more. A lot more. "You know what happened to her." Roman stayed silent. "Roman." For a second, something changed his face. Not fear. Guilt. That scared Elena more than anything else. "She stole something," Roman said quietly. Elena blinked. "What?" Roman walked toward the window. "About 20 years ago, your mother took something from my father. Something valuable." "What kind of valuable?" Roman looked out toward the gates. "Not money." The answer only made her more frustrated. "Then what was it?" Roman stayed silent for a second too long. Then he turned back toward her. "A ledger." Elena frowned. "A book." "A ledger filled with names. Payments. Deals. Judges. Politicians. Businessmen." The room went quiet. Roman's voice became lower. "Every secret my father spent years hiding." Elena stared at him. "Why would my mother take something like that?" Roman looked down at the desk. "Because she found out what those names meant." His expression darkened. "She found out how many people died because of the men she worked for." The answer hit Elena hard. Because suddenly, her mother looked different in her mind. Not weak, not afraid, brave. She wanted to expose them. Roman nodded once. "My father found out before she could." Elena's throat tightened. "And then what?" Roman looked away. She disappeared. The silence afterward felt brutal, because Elena already knew what Roman was trying not to say. If his father found her, there was a good chance her mother never escaped. Elena stepped back slowly. "You think she's dead?" Roman did not answer. That hurt worse than hearing the word itself. For years, Elena had imagined 1,000 reasons why her mother disappeared. Maybe she ran away. Maybe she got sick. Maybe she could not come back. But death had always been the one possibility she tried not to think about. Now it sat between them like something real. "Did you help him find her?" The question came out quietly. Roman looked at her sharply. "No, but you knew." "Yes." "You knew and you did nothing?" His expression hardened immediately. "You think I wanted that?" Elena looked at him with tears already burning in her eyes. You said she worked for your family. That means she trusted you. Roman looked away. She did. The pain in his voice only made her angrier. Then where were you? For the first time since she met him, Roman looked like a man carrying too much. She came to me the night she disappeared, he said quietly. Elena froze. Roman's eyes stayed on the floor. She asked me for help. Every part of Elena went still. She came to you? Roman nodded once. She wanted me to take her and you out of the city. Elena felt her heart pounding harder. What happened? Roman closed his eyes briefly. My father found out first. The room became silent again. He sent men after her, Roman said. I tried to get to her before they did. His jaw tightened. But I was too late. The words sounded like they had been trapped inside him for years. Too late. Elena suddenly understood why Roman looked at the photograph the way he did. Why he looked at her the way he did. Because every time he saw Elena, he saw someone he failed to save. You feel guilty. Roman laughed once, but there was no humor in it. I should have protected her. The honesty in his voice caught Elena off guard, because this was the first real thing Roman had ever given her. No lies, no coldness, just guilt. She looked at him for a long moment, then toward the files on the desk. So all these years people have been looking for that ledger? Roman nodded. My father died without finding it, and now everyone wants it. Elena frowned. Victor Moretti? Roman looked at her immediately. Yes. She finally understood. That was why people were searching for her. That was why Roman kept her hidden. That was why his men looked nervous every time she walked outside. Because somewhere out there, dangerous people believed Elena knew where the ledger was. But she did not. I don't have it. Roman stepped closer. I know. Then why am I still in danger? His face darkened. Because they think your mother gave it to someone before she disappeared. Elena looked at him. And they think that someone is me. Roman did not answer. He did not need to. The room suddenly felt too cold, too quiet, because Elena's entire life had been built on lies she never knew existed. Her mother was not just some woman who vanished. She was part of something dangerous, something unfinished. Elena walked away from the desk and wrapped her arms around herself. I thought my life was normal. Roman watched her quietly. No, he said softly. It never was. The words stayed between them. Heavy, painful. Elena looked toward the window. The mansion gate stood far away in the distance. Guards moved around the property. Black SUVs sat near the entrance. All this time, she thought Roman was controlling, because that was who he was. Now she realized something worse. He was afraid, because he knew exactly what kind of men were looking for her. What was she like? Roman looked surprised by the question. My mother, Elena said quietly. What was she like before all this? For the first time, Roman's face softened. She was stubborn. That almost made Elena smile. She argued with everyone, Roman continued, especially my father. His voice became quieter. She used to bring coffee to everyone in the office every morning. She remembered birthdays. She made people laugh when they didn't want to. Elena listened carefully, because for the first time in years, someone was giving her pieces of her mother she never had. She loved old music, Roman said, and she hated winter. The room stayed quiet. She sounds nothing like this world. Roman looked at her. She wasn't. Their eyes held for a second too long, because suddenly, Elena realized something else. Roman had not just known her mother. He had cared about her, maybe more than he wanted to admit. You loved her. Roman looked away immediately. No. The answer came too fast, too sharp. Elena saw the truth anyway. Maybe not romantic love. Maybe something else. But he cared enough that losing her still hurt him years later. She mattered to you. Roman looked back at her. She was the only good person in that house. The word stayed with Elena, because for the first time, she understood Roman a little better too. He had spent his whole life surrounded by dangerous people, cruel people, and maybe her mother had been one of the few things that reminded him there was something better. Elena looked down. Why did you bring me here? Roman stepped closer. close enough that she could see the tiredness in his eyes. "Because the second I saw you in the back seat of my SUV, I knew exactly who you were." Elena stopped breathing for a second. Roman looked at her quietly. "You have her eyes." Something painful moved through her chest, because suddenly she understood the way Roman always looked at her. Not just curiosity, recognition, memory, guilt. "You didn't save me because you felt sorry for me," Elena whispered. Roman's expression stayed unreadable. "No," he said softly. "I saved you because I failed her." The room fell silent. Elena looked up at him. Roman looked down at her. For 1 second, neither of them moved, because after all the anger, all the secrets, all the lies, there was finally something honest between them. Then gunshots exploded outside the mansion gates. Elena thought she was only hiding from the streets, but now she was running from men willing to kill for her family's secrets. The first gunshot shattered the front gate. The second exploded through one of the mansion windows. Within seconds, the entire house fell into chaos. Alarms screamed through the hallways. Guards rushed across the marble floors. Somewhere downstairs, glass shattered again. Roman moved before Elena could even process what was happening. He grabbed her arm and pulled her behind the desk, just as another bullet tore through the office window. "Stay down." His voice was colder than she had ever heard it. Elena dropped to the floor beside him. Her heart pounded so hard it almost hurt. Outside, men shouted near the front driveway. More gunshots followed. Roman pulled a gun from the desk drawer and checked a magazine in one smooth movement. For the first time since she met him, Elena saw the real version of Roman DeLuca. Not the cold man in expensive suits. Not the quiet man carrying guilt in his eyes. This version looked dangerous, deadly, like violence belonged to him. Marco burst into the office a second later. "Moretti men at the front gate," he said quickly. "At least 15 of them." Roman stood immediately. "How did they get through security?" Marco's expression darkened. Somebody inside helped them. For 1 second, the room became silent, because that meant Roman had a traitor somewhere inside his own organization. Roman looked at Elena. "You stay here." She shook her head instantly. "No." Roman's eyes hardened. "This isn't a discussion." Another gunshot exploded through the hallway outside. Elena flinched. Roman moved in front of her automatically. The gesture was so fast, so instinctive, that she barely had time to think about it. He was shielding her with his own body. Marco looked toward the door. "They're pushing inside." Roman nodded once. Then he looked back at Elena. "Do not leave this room unless I come back for you." Before she could answer, he was already gone. Elena stayed frozen behind the desk. She could hear everything happening outside. Men yelling. Footsteps pounding across the floors. More gunshots. Every sound made her chest tighter. For the first time, Roman's world no longer felt distant. It felt real and terrifying. A few minutes later, the office door suddenly opened again. Elena jumped, but it was Roman. Blood stained one side of his white shirt. Not his blood. At least she hoped not. "Come with me." She stood immediately. "What's happening?" Roman grabbed her hand and pulled her into the hallway. The mansion looked completely different now. Smoke drifted through the lower level. Broken glass covered the floor. One of the guards sat against the wall holding his arm, while another man shouted into a phone nearby. Roman moved quickly through the house with Elena close behind him. His hand never left hers. They reached the back staircase just as 2 armed men appeared near the dining room. Roman pushed Elena behind him instantly. Gunshots exploded through the hall. One of the men fell immediately. The other ran. Elena stared at Roman in shock. He lowered the gun slowly. His expression did not change. That scared her more than anything, because Roman did not look shaken. He looked used to this. He looked like a man who had spent his whole life surviving violence. Roman turned back toward her. "You okay?" Elena nodded quickly, even though she was not. He grabbed her hand again. "Keep moving." They reached the underground garage beneath the mansion. Black SUVs lined the walls. Several guards stood near the exit doors with guns in their hands. Marco appeared beside one of the vehicles. "The back road is still clear," he said, "but not for long." Roman opened the back door of the SUV. Get in. Elena stopped. What about the others? Roman looked at her. Marco will handle it. Marco did not argue, but Elena noticed the look he gave Roman. Sharp, curious, like he was wondering why Roman cared this much. Roman climbed into the front seat, while two guards followed in another SUV behind them. The gates behind the mansion had already been opened. The black SUV sped down a narrow road through the trees. For several minutes, nobody spoke. Elena looked back toward the mansion disappearing behind them. Smoke still rose above the roof. Her hands would not stop shaking. Roman noticed. Without looking at her, he reached back and rested one hand over hers. The movement was small, but it steadied her more than she expected. After a while, Elena looked at him. Who is Victor Moretti? Roman's jaw tightened. He runs a Moretti family. The same family your father used to work with? Roman nodded once. He was close to my father for years. Elena frowned. And now he wants whatever your mother took. She looked down at her hands. But I don't have anything. Roman looked at her through the mirror. He doesn't care. The SUV continued to the dark roads outside the city. Rain hit the windows. The guard behind them stayed close. Elena looked at Roman again. Why is he so obsessed? Roman stayed silent for a second. Then he answered, because your mother didn't just steal a ledger. Elena frowned. What else did she take? Roman looked back at the road. Money. The answer shocked her. How much? Millions. Elena stared at him. She stole millions of dollars? Roman's expression stayed cold. Not for herself. He gripped the steering wheel tighter. She moved money out of accounts connected to my father and Victor Moretti. Dirty money. Hidden money. Elena tried to understand. So Victor thinks I know where it is. Roman nodded. He thinks your mother hid both the money and the ledger before she disappeared. The room inside the SUV felt smaller suddenly, because now Elena understood why men were willing to kill for her. Not because of who she was, because of what they believed she knew. She looked out the window. My whole life has been built around things I never even knew existed. Roman glanced at her briefly. I know. The way he said it almost sounded like an apology. After another hour, the SUV finally turned off the main road and drove deep into the woods. Tall trees surrounded the narrow path. Rain covered the windshield. Eventually, a small cabin appeared near a lake. It looked old but clean. Wooden porch. Stone chimney. No other houses nearby. Roman parked the SUV and stepped out first. The guards checked the area before nodding. Clear. Roman opened Elena's door. We'll stay here tonight. Elena looked at the cabin. This place is yours. Roman nodded. My mother used to bring me here when I was a kid. For some reason, that detail mattered to her, because it felt personal, soft, not like the rest of Roman's world. Inside, the cabin felt warm. A fire already burned in the fireplace. The furniture looked simple. Dark leather couch, old books on the shelves, blankets folded near the windows. It was the first place Elena had seen Roman, and that did not feel like a fortress. Roman walked toward the kitchen and poured himself a drink. His white shirt still had blood on it. His knuckles were bruised. He looked exhausted. Elena stood near the fireplace, watching him. You got hurt. Roman looked down at his hand. It's nothing. She moved closer. It's not nothing. Roman stayed silent while she found a small first aid kit inside one of the kitchen cabinets. She sat him down near the couch and cleaned the cut on his knuckles. For once, Roman did not argue. He just watched her quietly. The room felt peaceful after everything that happened. Too peaceful, because outside, the rain kept falling. And somewhere out there, men were still looking for them. You could have left me behind, Elena said softly. Roman looked at her. No, you barely know me. His expression darkened slightly. That's not true. Elena looked up at him. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then Roman looked toward the fire. My men think I'm making a mistake. Are you? Roman looked back at her. You make me forget how to think clearly. The honesty in his voice caught her off guard, because Roman almost never admitted weakness. But this sounded like weakness. Real weakness. Elena tied the bandage around his hand. You still didn't answer my question. Roman frowned slightly. What question? Why do I matter so much? The room became quiet. Roman looked into the fire for a long moment. Then he finally spoke. Because your mother mattered. Elena's chest tightened instantly. Roman leaned back against the couch. She was the only good thing in my father's world. His voice sounded quieter now. She treated people like they mattered, even people nobody else saw. Elena listened carefully, because every time Roman talked about her mother, he looked different, softer, sadder. She used to sneak food to the kitchen staff when my father forgot to pay them. Roman said quietly, she used to bring books for me because she knew I hated the tutors. A small smile almost appeared on his face. She was the first person who ever told me I didn't have to become my father. Elena looked down. You loved her. Roman went still. The fire crackled softly between them. For a second, he looked like he might deny it. But this time, he did not. Roman looked at her with tired eyes. Yes, he said quietly. She was the only woman I ever loved. Roman DeLuca had survived wars, betrayal, and bloodshed, but falling for Elena was the one thing he never planned for. The morning after Roman admitted he loved Elena's mother, the cabin felt different, quieter, heavier. Rain still covered the lake outside, and gray clouds in most of the sky, but something had changed between them. Elena stood near the kitchen window, holding a cup of coffee, while Roman sat at the wooden table looking through maps and phone messages from Marco. Neither of them mentioned the night before. Neither of them mentioned the way Roman looked at her after admitting the truth. But it stayed there anyway, between every glance, between every silence. Roman looked tired. He had not slept much. Elena noticed it in the dark circles beneath his eyes and the way he kept rubbing one hand across his jaw. Victor's men are still searching the roads outside the city, Roman said quietly. Elena looked toward him. How close are they? Roman folded one of the maps. Too close. That answer should have scared her. It did. But somehow, being here with Roman felt safer than anywhere else. Even inside a cabin hidden in the middle of nowhere. Over the next few days, they stayed away from the city. Marco brought supplies when he could. Food, clothes, new phones, information. Victor Moretti's men had spread rumors across Chicago. Some believed Elena had the ledger. Others believed she knew where the stolen money was hidden. Victor wanted her alive for now. That was the only reason she was still breathing. Roman knew that would not last forever. One afternoon, Elena found him standing near the lake behind the cabin. The weather had finally cleared. Sunlight touched the water for the first time in days. Roman stood with both hands in his pockets, staring out at the lake like he was somewhere else entirely. Elena walked toward him slowly. You come out here a lot. Roman nodded once. My mother used to bring me fishing here. She stopped beside him. You miss her? Roman looked down at the lake. She died when I was 19. The answer surprised her, because Roman almost never talked about himself. She was the only person who ever tried to protect me from my father. His voice stayed calm. Too calm, like he had learned how to speak about pain without feeling it. But Elena knew better now. Roman felt everything. He just buried it deeper than most people. She used to tell me I was too good for this life, he said quietly. Then she died, and there was nobody left to say it. Elena looked at him carefully, because suddenly Roman did not seem powerful. He seemed lonely, like a man who had spent his entire life surviving instead of living. You're not your father, she said softly. Roman looked at her. For 1 second, his expression changed. Not softer, sad. You don't know that. The word stayed with her for the rest of the day, because Roman was wrong. She did know. A cruel man would not have saved her. A cruel man would not have hidden her, protected her, or looked at her the way Roman did when he thought she was not paying attention. That night, the power went out during a storm. The cabin went dark, except for the firelight from the living room. Elena sat on the couch wrapped in a blanket, while Roman lit candles around the room. The soft light changed him somehow, made him look less dangerous, less like Roman DeLuca, more like a man. You ever think about leaving? Elena asked quietly. Roman looked over at her. Leaving what? This life. He stayed silent for a second. Then he sat across from her near the fire. When I was younger, he said quietly, I used to think I could. Elena watched him. What changed? Roman looked into the fire. My father got sick. My brother disappeared. The business became mine. He shrugged slightly. After that, there was no leaving. The answer hurt more than she expected, because Roman said it like he had accepted it years ago, like he no longer believed he deserved anything different. You still could. Roman looked up at her. For a second, neither of them moved. Then he looked away first. No, he said quietly. Not anymore. The room became silent, except for the sound of rain against the windows. Elena hated how much his answer bothered her, because she wanted him to believe there could still be something else, something better. A few days later, Marco arrived at the cabin with bad news. Victor's men had found 2 of Roman's safe houses. One of his drivers had disappeared. Another guard was found dead near the docks. Someone close to Roman was still feeding Victor information. Marco placed several photographs across the kitchen table. Roman looked through them silently. Elena noticed a change in his face immediately. He became colder, harder, more distant, like the dangerous version of him was coming back. We need to move again, Marco said. Roman shook his head. Not yet. Roman, not yet. Marco looked toward Elena briefly, then back at Roman. You're getting too attached. The room went quiet. Roman's eyes moved toward Marco slowly. Be careful. Marco lowered his head immediately, but Elena noticed something important. Marco was not wrong. Roman was attached. Too attached. And maybe that was why he looked so angry now, because caring about Elena made him weak in ways he hated. That same night, Elena could not sleep. The storm had returned. Wind hit the cabin windows. The entire house creaked softly in the dark. Eventually, she left her room and walked downstairs. She found Roman sitting alone near the fireplace with a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked exhausted. You should sleep, he said without looking at her. So should you. Roman almost smiled. Almost. Elena sat beside him quietly. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then she noticed something resting beside him on the couch. An old wooden box. What's that? Roman looked down at it. Something I should have given you sooner. He handed it to her slowly. Elena opened the box carefully. Inside were photographs, old letters, a silver necklace, and one folded piece of paper with her mother's handwriting across the front. Elena stopped breathing. What is this? Roman looked down at the fire. She left it the night she disappeared. Her hands shook as she unfolded the letter. The paper looked old and slightly worn, but the handwriting was clear. Elena, if you are reading this, it means I never made it back to you. Please believe one thing before anything else. I never left because I wanted to. I never stopped loving you. Not for one day. Tears filled Elena's eyes instantly. She kept reading. There are dangerous people around us. Men who care more about power than lives. I try to protect you from them, but I do not know if I succeeded. If Roman gives you this letter one day, trust him. He is the only man in that world who still remembers what it means to be good. Elena looked up at Roman. He stayed silent. She looked back down at the letter. I want to take you far away. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere safe. Somewhere you could grow up without fear. I am sorry I could not give you that life. Please do not hate me for disappearing. I loved you before you were born. I will love you after I am gone. Love, Mom. By the time Elena finished reading, tears were running down her face, because for years she had carried one terrible belief, that her mother left willingly, that maybe she did not love her enough to stay. Now she knew the truth. Her mother had been trying to save her the entire time. She never abandoned me, Elena whispered. Roman looked at her quietly. No, he said. She didn't. Elena pressed the letter against her chest. For a few seconds, she could not speak. Roman moved closer slowly. Not enough to touch her, just enough so she would not feel alone. She wanted to come back for you, he said softly. She tried. Elena looked at him through tears. Then what happened to her? Roman went still. The room changed immediately, because suddenly the silence between them felt heavier, more dangerous. Roman looked down at the glass in his hand, then toward the fire. You already know. Elena's heart started pounding. No, she whispered. I don't. Roman closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, they looked darker than before. She didn't run, he said quietly. She didn't disappear. Elena felt like she could barely breathe. Roman looked at her. She was murdered. The words hit her like a knife. For one horrible second, the room disappeared around her. She looked down at the letter in her hands, then back at Roman. Who? Roman stayed silent. That silence terrified her more than anything else, because Roman knew. He had always known. Roman, she whispered again. His jaw tightened. Then he finally looked at her. My father killed her. The man who destroyed Elena's mother was the same man now trying to destroy her. For several seconds, Elena could not move. The words stayed trapped inside the cabin like smoke. My father killed her. Roman sat across from her near the fireplace with the same cold expression he always wore when he was trying not to feel something. But Elena saw it. The guilt, the regret, the anger he had carried for years. She looked down at the letter still shaking in her hands, then back at Roman. You said your father was dead. Roman nodded once. He is. Then why are people still after me? Roman stared into fire. Because Victor Moretti was there that night, too. The room went silent. Elena felt her chest tighten instantly. Roman's voice became quieter. My father gave the order. Victor helped carry it out. Elena stared at him. So the man hunting me now, he helped murder your mother. The answer broke something inside her. For one horrible second, Elena could not breathe. She stood too quickly from the couch and walked toward the kitchen. She needed space. Air. Anything. Her hands shook so badly she almost dropped the letter. Roman stayed where he was. He did not follow her right away. Maybe because he knew there was nothing he could say that would make this better. Elena stood near the sink with both hands pressed against the counter. Her entire life had been built around questions. Where did her mother go? Why did she leave? Why did nobody come back for her? Now she had the answers. And somehow, the truth hurt more than the lies. She was murdered because she tried to do the right thing. Roman looked at her quietly. Yes. Elena laughed bitterly through tears. She died because she was brave. Roman did not answer. That silence said enough. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Elena turned toward him. You said Victor was there. Roman's jaw tightened. He found her first. The room became still again. She tried to run, Roman said quietly. She had you with her. Elena felt her stomach drop. She had me? Roman nodded once. You were only a few months old. Tears burned in Elena's eyes again. Roman looked down at the floor. She left you with someone before Victor's men reached her. Who? A woman who worked in one of my father's clubs. Elena frowned. Grace. Roman looked up. She raised you after that. Everything suddenly connected. Grace had always avoided questions about Elena's mother. She always looked nervous whenever Elena asked too much. Because Grace knew. She had known the whole time. She was trying to protect me, Elena whispered. Roman nodded. Yes. The room stayed quiet. Then Elena looked back at Roman. You were supposed to save her. The words came out harsher than she intended. But Roman did not get angry. He looked down at his hands. I know. That answer hurt her more than if he had shouted, because Roman blamed himself already. He had probably blamed himself every day since it happened. I was too late, he said quietly. By the time I got there, Victor had already taken her. His voice darkened. I spent years looking for her body. Elena closed her eyes, because suddenly she saw Roman differently again, not just as a dangerous man who protected her, but as someone who had lost a woman he loved and spent the rest of his life carrying that failure. What did Victor want from her? Roman looked back at the fire, the ledger, the money, everything she stole. Elena frowned. Why was it so important? Roman stood slowly and walked toward the bookshelf near the wall. He pulled out a thick folder hidden behind several old books. Then he placed it on the table in front of her. Inside were photographs. Judges, police captains, politicians, famous businessmen. Every picture had notes written beside it. Payments, dates, meetings. Elena looked through the pages in shock. These people are connected to Victor? Roman nodded. And to my father. His face stayed cold. The ledger doesn't just expose criminals. It exposes everyone who helped them. Elena looked down at the names. Some of them were men she had seen on television. Men with power. Men who looked respectable. That's why Victor wants it so badly, Roman said. Because if the ledger ever becomes public, it destroys all of them. The room became quiet again, because now Elena understood. This was never just about money. It was about survival. Victor was not trying to protect secrets. He was trying to protect an empire. A few hours later, Marco arrived at the cabin. His face looked tense. Rain covered his coat. Roman stood immediately. What happened? Marco looked toward Elena briefly before answering. We found one of Victor's men near the lake road. Roman's expression hardened. How close? Too close. Marco placed several photographs across the table. Tire tracks, a burned car, a dead man near the side of the road. Victor's people were getting closer. Roman looked at the pictures silently. Then his face changed. He became colder, more dangerous, like the man Elena first met inside the black SUV. We move tonight, Roman said. Elena shook her head immediately. No. Both men looked at her. I'm not running again. Roman stepped toward her. You don't have a choice. Yes, I do. Roman's jaw tightened. Elena. No, she snapped. I'm tired of hiding while everyone else makes decisions for me. Marco quietly looked away. Roman stared at her. You think this is a game? I think I'm tired being treated like a child. The room became silent. Roman moved closer. His voice lowered. This isn't about control. Then what is it about? Roman looked at her with an expression she had never seen before. Fear. Real fear. It's about keeping you alive. The honesty in his voice made her chest ache, because for the first time, she realized Roman was not angry. He was terrified. Terrified because everyone he loved eventually disappeared. And now she was standing in front of him, refusing to stay safe. Later that night, Elena found Roman alone outside near the lake. The rain had stopped. Cold wind moved through the trees. Roman stood near the edge of the water with both hands in his pockets. He looked exhausted. Elena walked toward him slowly. You can't keep carrying all of this alone. Roman did not look at her. I'm used to it. That doesn't mean you should be. For a second, he stayed silent. Then he finally looked at her. My father ruined every good thing he touched. His voice sounded rough. My mother, your mother, me. Elena shook her head. You're not him. Roman laughed bitterly. You don't know what I've done. She stepped closer. No, she said softly, but I know what you do now. Roman looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked away again, because maybe part of him wanted to believe her, even if he did not know how. The next morning, everything got worse. Marco disappeared. Roman tried calling him 6 times. No answer. By afternoon, one of Roman's guards found Marco's car abandoned near the highway. Inside was an envelope. Roman opened it in silence. One photograph fell into his hand. Marco standing beside Victor Moretti. The picture looked recent. Very recent. Elena stared at it. No. Roman's face went completely still, because betrayal from enemies was expected. Betrayal from someone trusted felt worse. Marco had been with Roman for almost 10 years. He knew everything. The safe houses, the money, the guards, the cabin. He's been feeding Victor information, Elena whispered. Roman looked down at the photograph. Yes. His voice sounded cold enough to freeze the room. For the rest of the day, Roman barely spoke. He loaded guns, checked maps, made calls, prepared for war. Elena watched him quietly, because she could see what was happening. Every time someone betrayed Roman, he became harder, more distant, like he was building walls faster than anyone could break them. That night, She found him sitting alone near the fire with a gun resting across his lap. "You don't have to do this alone," she said quietly. Roman looked up at her. "For once, let me protect you too." The room became silent. Then Roman stood slowly. He walked toward her until only a few inches separated them. "You already do." Elena stopped breathing for a second. Roman looked down at her face. His hand moved slowly against her cheek. "When you walked into my life, everything got worse." The words should have hurt, but the way he said them felt different. "Victor found you. The past came back. People started dying." Elena looked up at him. "Then why are you looking at me like that?" Roman's eyes darkened. "Because somehow you're also the only good thing that's happened to me in years." The room went quiet. His hand stayed against her face. Warm, careful, like he was afraid she might disappear. "I tried not to feel this," Roman said softly, "because I loved your mother, because you deserve better than me, because I know what happens to people who get too close to men like me." Elena's chest tightened. "But," she whispered. Roman looked at her for a long moment. Then he finally said the words she had been waiting for. "But I love you anyway." For 1 second, the world disappeared around them. Elena reached for him first. Roman kissed her like a man who had spent too long trying not to. Slow at first, then deeper. Desperate, painful in the best way. Because after everything they survived, after all the lies and fear and grief, they finally stopped pretending. Roman wrapped his arms around her tightly. Elena closed her eyes. For the first time in her life, she felt safe. Then the front door exploded open. Roman DeLuca had destroyed cities for power before, but this time he was willing to burn everything down for love. The men who stormed the cabin moved fast. Too fast. 1 second Elena was in Roman's arms. The next, smoke filled the room and gunshots exploded through the walls. Roman shoved her behind him immediately. His gun was already in his hand. He fired twice toward the front door. One man dropped. Another crashed through the broken window near the kitchen. The cabin turned into chaos. Elena covered her ears as bullets tore through the walls around them. Roman grabbed her wrist and pulled her toward the back hallway. "Stay behind me." His voice sounded colder than she had ever heard it. More men rushed inside. Roman fired again. Blood hit the wooden floor. Glass shattered behind them. For 1 horrible second, Elena thought they might actually make it out. Then someone grabbed her from behind. A cloth covered her mouth. She kicked and screamed. Roman turned just in time to see 2 men dragging her toward the back door. "Elena!" He shot one of them immediately, but another slammed something heavy into the side of his head. Roman stumbled. By the time he got back up, Elena was gone. The SUV carrying her disappeared down the dark road outside the cabin. Roman stood in the middle of the destroyed living room with blood running down one side of his face. His chest rose hard. His hands shook, not from fear, from rage, because Victor Moretti had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Meanwhile, Elena woke up inside a cold concrete room. Her head hurt. Her wrists were tied to a metal chair. A single light hung above her. There were no windows, only gray walls and a locked steel door. For a moment, she had no idea where she was. Then she heard footsteps. Victor Moretti walked into the room. He looked older than she expected. Silver hair, dark suit, cold eyes. The kind of man who smiled without warmth. He sat down across from her slowly. "You look like your mother." Elena stared at him. Hatred moved through her chest instantly. "You killed her." Victor almost smiled. She should have listened. The answer made Elena want to scream. Instead, she stayed silent, because she already knew what men like Victor wanted. Fear. Victor leaned back in his chair. "Tell me where the ledger is." "I don't know." Victor watched her carefully. "You expect me to believe that?" "It's the truth." Victor's face darkened slightly. "Your mother died protecting that ledger. Roman destroyed half the city, trying to keep you alive." He leaned closer. "You know where it is." Elena looked directly at him. "No." For 1 second, Victor's calm expression disappeared. He grabbed her jaw roughly. "Do not lie to me." Elena winced but refused to look away. Because if Victor Moretti wanted fear, She would not give it to him. Back in Chicago, Roman had already started a war. By sunrise, 3 of Victor's warehouses were burning. One nightclub exploded near the river. Several Moretti men disappeared before dawn. Roman did not sleep. He did not eat. He moved through the city like a man with nothing left to lose. Because without Elena, that was exactly what he was. Marco's betrayal had changed everything. Roman found him before noon. One of his guards tracked Marco to an apartment near the docks. Roman went alone. Marco looked shocked when he opened the door. Roman hit him before he could finish speaking. Marco crashed into the wall. Blood covered his mouth instantly. "You sold her?" Marco looked terrified. "I didn't know they were going to take her." Roman grabbed him by the collar. "You told Victor where we were." Marco's face twisted with guilt. "He promised me money." Roman stared at him. Years of loyalty destroyed by one weak choice. "Where is she?" Marco shook his head. "I don't know." Roman slammed him against the wall again. Wrong answer. By the time Roman left the apartment, Marco could barely stand. But Roman finally had something useful. An address. An old factory near the south side of the city. One of Victor's hidden compounds. Roman returned to one of his safe houses before sunset. Maps covered the walls. Guns covered the table. Several of his men waited near the entrance. Roman stood at the center of the room, looking more dangerous than any of them had ever seen him. "We hit every Moretti location we know," one of the men said. Roman shook his head. "No." The room went quiet. He pointed toward the factory address. "We hit this one." Marco's information had also revealed something else. The ledger was hidden inside a safety deposit box beneath an old bank downtown. Elena's mother had never kept it for herself. She hid it with other evidence. Bank records, video recordings, signed documents. Enough information to destroy half the city. Judges, politicians, police captains. Roman stared down at the list of names connected to the evidence. Some of them were men who still worked with him. Men who would kill to keep their names hidden. For the first time, Roman realized something dangerous. Saving Elena would not only start a war with Victor, it would start a war with everyone. One of Roman's older captains looked at him carefully. "If that evidence becomes public, all of us go down." Roman looked at him. "I know. You should destroy it." Roman's expression turned cold. "No." The room went silent, because every man there understood what that meant. Roman was choosing Elena over the empire, over the money, over the alliances, over everything. That night, Roman and his men surrounded the factory. The building sat near the edge of the river. Old brick walls, broken windows, armed guards near every entrance. Victor knew Roman would come. Roman stepped out of the SUV with a gun in one hand. Rain covered the city streets. Behind him, his men loaded weapons and spread out around the building. No one spoke. They did not need to, because everyone knew this was not just business anymore. This was personal. Inside the compound, Elena sat alone in another room. Her wrists hurt. Her face ached, but she refused to cry. Victor had questioned her 3 times already. Every answer stayed the same. She did not know where the ledger was. One of Victor's men entered the room. "He's here." Victor stood near the doorway. For the first time, his face showed something close to fear. Then gunshots exploded outside. The building shook. Men shouted in the hallways. Victor looked toward the sound. Roman had arrived. The next few minutes became chaos. Roman's men stormed the compound from 3 different entrances. Bullets tore through the walls. Glass exploded across the floor. Moretti men dropped one after another. Roman moved through the building like a man possessed. He shot anyone standing between him and Elena. Nothing slowed him down. Nothing mattered except finding her. He reached the 2nd-floor hallway just as one of Victor's guards stepped out a side room. Roman shot him immediately. Then he saw her. Elena sat tied to a chair inside the room, bruised, exhausted, alive. For 1 second, Roman stopped moving. Because after everything, after all the blood and violence and fear, she was still there. Elena! She looked up. The second she saw him, something inside her broke. Roman rushed toward her and untied the ropes around her wrists. His hands moved carefully against her skin. "You're okay," he said roughly. Elena grabbed his coat. "I knew you'd come." Roman touched her face. For one brief second, the war disappeared around them. Then another gunshot exploded nearby. Victor's men were still inside the building. Roman pulled Elena behind him and moved toward the hallway. Bodies covered the floor. Smoke filled the air. The entire compound was collapsing into chaos. They reached the lower level just as Victor appeared near the back exit with 2 armed guards beside him. Everything stopped. Victor looked at Roman. Roman looked at Victor. Years of hatred sat between them. Victor almost smiled. "You really loved her mother." Roman's face stayed cold. "Yes." Victor's eyes moved toward Elena. "And now you love her." Roman stepped in front of Elena immediately. Victor laughed once. Always the same weakness. Roman lifted the gun slowly. "You should have left her alone." Victor's expression darkened. She was never supposed to survive. The words hit Elena like ice. Because suddenly, she realized something worse. Victor had not only wanted the ledger, he wanted to erase every reminder of what happened to her mother. Roman's jaw tightened. "You killed an innocent woman." Victor looked almost bored. "I protected what mattered." Roman looked at him with complete hatred. "No," he said quietly. "You destroyed everything you touched." For 1 second, nobody moved. Then Victor reached for his gun. Roman fired first. Victor stumbled backward. Blood spread across the front of his shirt. He looked down in shock. Then he collapsed to the floor. The room went silent. Because just like that, the man who destroyed Elena's life was gone. Roman lowered the gun slowly. Elena stared at Victor's body. She expected relief. Instead, she only felt empty. Roman turned toward her. "It's over." But even as he said the words, something about them felt wrong. Because nothing was ever that simple. Later that night, Roman brought Elena to one of his safest apartments downtown. The city looked quiet outside the windows. For the first time in days, nobody was chasing them. Nobody was shooting at them. Nobody was trying to kill them. Roman placed the recovered evidence across the table. Folders, drives, photographs. The entire truth about Victor, Roman's father, and everyone connected to them. Elena looked through the pages slowly. Then she froze. Because there, written across several pages near the front of the ledger, was another name. Roman DeLuca. Elena thought the nightmare was finally over. Until she learned Roman had been hiding one last betrayal. For several seconds, Elena could not breathe. Roman DeLuca. His name appeared again and again across the pages. Payments, meetings, dates, hidden transfers connected to Victor Moretti and Roman's father. The evidence shook in Elena's hands. Roman stood across the room, near the window. His face changed the moment he realized what she was looking at. The silence between them became unbearable. "You knew," Elena whispered. Roman closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, he looked tired, older, like a man who had been waiting for this moment for years. "Elena, you knew your name was in here." Roman looked down at the table. "Yes." That answer hurt more than anything else. Because after everything they survived, after everything he told her, he still hid this from her. Elena stepped back from the table slowly. "What did you do?" Roman stayed silent for a second too long. Then he finally spoke. "I moved money." Her chest tightened. "What?" Roman looked at her. "When I was younger, my father used me to move money through fake companies and offshore accounts." His voice sounded cold, flat, like he hated every word. "I signed papers, opened accounts, delivered cash." Elena stared at him. "You helped them?" Roman nodded once. "I was 19. The answer did not make her feel better, because 19 was young, but it was not a child. You knew innocent people were getting hurt. Roman looked away. "At first, no." His jaw tightened. "But later, yes." The room became quiet. Elena felt sick, because suddenly, all the pieces fit together in the worst possible way. Roman was not only connected to her mother's death, he was connected to the entire world that destroyed her. You were part of it. Roman looked at her with pain in his eyes. Yes, the honesty should have mattered. Instead, it only made her angrier. Then why save me, she asked. Why protect me? Roman stared at her for a long moment. Because I spent the last 15 years trying to become someone she wouldn't hate. The answer broke something inside her. Because for the first time, Roman did not sound like a powerful man. He sounded like someone drowning in guilt. He walked slowly toward the table. My father controlled everything, he said quietly. Every account, every shipment, every person. His voice darkened. And when I finally realized what he was doing, it was too late. Elena looked down at the papers again. My mother trusted you. Roman closed his eyes briefly. I know. You let her down. The words hit him hard. She saw it in his face immediately. But Roman did not defend himself, because deep down he agreed. She came to me because she thought I would help her, he said quietly, and I was too weak to stop what happened. The room felt colder now, smaller, because Elena loved him. That was the worst part. After everything, after all the danger and grief and blood, she still loved him, and now she hated herself for it. You should have told me. Roman nodded slowly. I know. You should have told me before I fell in love with you. His face changed instantly. For 1 second, he looked completely shattered, because those words hurt more than anger ever could. Elena turned away from him. She walked toward the window and wrapped her arms around herself. The city lights glowed below. Chicago looked peaceful from up here. But inside the apartment, everything felt broken again. Roman stayed behind her. He did not touch her, did not try to force her to listen, because maybe he knew he did not deserve that. I never stopped thinking about her, he said quietly. Elena stayed silent. The night she died, the way she looked at me before she ran. His voice cracked slightly. I should have gone with her. For the first time since she met him, Roman looked completely defeated. No coldness, no power, just guilt. I spent years trying to fix it, he said. I destroyed my father's businesses after he died. I cut ties with the men who helped him. He looked down at the floor, but none of it changed what I did. The room became quiet again, because he was right. Nothing could change it. Nothing could bring her mother back. A few days passed before Elena spoke to him properly again. They stayed inside the apartment. The city still felt dangerous. Several of Victor's allies had disappeared after his death, but some were still out there, watching, waiting. Roman spent most of his time on the phone, shutting down businesses, selling properties, closing accounts. At first, Elena did not understand why. Then one afternoon, she walked into the office and found him signing papers. What are you doing? Roman looked up at her. Leaving. She frowned. What? Roman placed a pen down. I'm selling everything. The room went quiet. The clubs, the warehouses, the businesses. He looked at her. All of it. Elena stared at him. You'd walk away from all of this? Roman nodded once. There's nothing left here worth keeping. The answer hit her harder than she expected, because for the first time, she realized Roman meant it. He was giving up everything. The empire, the money, the power, everything he spent his whole life building. For me? Roman looked at her quietly. For a chance. Those words stayed with her long after he left the room, because for the first time, Elena saw something she never expected from Roman DeLuca. Hope. Not hope that he could erase the past, but hope that maybe he could still become someone better than it. That night, Elena found an old photo inside one of the boxes near the office. Her mother stood near the lake cabin, smiling at the camera. Roman stood beside her, young, happy, normal. On the back of the photo, her mother had written one sentence: "You are not your father." Elena stared at the words for a long time, because suddenly she understood something. Her mother knew the truth about Roman. She knew he was part of that world, but she also knew he was different from the men around him. Maybe that was why she trusted him. Maybe that was why she loved him too. The next morning, Elena found Roman standing alone on the balcony. The sunrise covered the city in soft gold light. He looked tired, like he had not slept. When he turned and saw her, something cautious moved into his face. like he was waiting for her to leave. Instead, Elena walked toward him slowly. Roman looked down at her. "You shouldn't forgive me." His voice sounded rough. "I know. After everything I've done. I know." The city stayed quiet around them. Elena looked up at him. "I hate what you did," she whispered. Roman closed his eyes briefly. "But I know you hate it too." For 1 second, neither of them moved. Then Elena touched his face gently. "You spent your whole life becoming a man your father wanted." Her voice shook slightly. "Maybe it's time you become the man my mother believed you could be." Roman stared at her like he had forgotten how to breathe, because nobody had ever looked at him with that much faith before, not even himself. Tears filled his eyes for the first time since she met him. He pulled her into his arms slowly, carefully, like he still could not believe she was there. "I love you," he whispered against her hair. Elena closed her eyes. "I know." Over the next month, Roman kept his promise. He sold everything connected to the old world. The clubs, the warehouses, the illegal businesses. He gave money to the families hurt by his father and Victor. He handed copies of the evidence to federal agents through anonymous channels. Judges disappeared from office. Politicians resigned. Police captains got arrested. For the first time in years, powerful men were finally afraid. Roman did not care. He only cared about Elena. And for the first time in his life, that was enough. A few weeks later, they left Chicago. No guards. No black SUVs. No guns hidden beneath expensive jackets. Only one car driving west as the city disappeared behind them. Elena sat beside Roman with the window slightly open. Warm air moved through her hair. Roman kept one hand on the steering wheel and the other resting near hers. For the first time, neither of them looked back. A small box rested in Elena's lap. Inside were the last things she had from her mother: the necklace, the photographs, the letters, and one final file she had not opened yet. As the road stretched ahead of them, Elena slowly opened it. Inside were more old papers, receipts, names, photographs. Then she saw something that made her stop breathing. Another signature. Another man connected to her mother's death. Not Roman, not Victor. Marco Romano.